Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Misty Moss. I am a full-time boudoir photographer in Victoria, BC, and I take empowering boudoir pictures of my clients. I'm bad at these today, as well as specializing in empowering boudoir self-portraits to help you love yourself and feel good about yourself just like you deserve. So today's video has actually been requested quite a bit in the comments and in my Instagram. So I am going to tackle the question of which lens is my favorite for boudoir photography. This is of course a subjective question with a subjective answer. So other photographers have different lenses. I know some photographers that use a lens that I personally don't like shooting with, but it works for them, works for their style. So it's going to be a pretty personal answer for you for what works best for your style and for your work. So let's talk about it. Let's do the thing. So I have two lenses that I kind of rotate through, but I definitely have one that stays on my camera almost exclusively. So I'll talk about the second one first. It's the one that I started using a lot until I kind of like rediscovered the other lens, and now I won't stop using it. So the two lenses I'm alluding to are a 50mm and a 35. So I shoot with primes. I just find it way easier to get consistent lighting and get consistent kind of like depths of field, like just primes all the way. So let's talk about the 50 first. Ta-da! So this is the 50 Sigma Art 1.4. I went with Sigma just because it was cheaper and it had really good reviews from photographers that I knew as well as from the internet. So I went with it. I love it. I don't shoot with it that much anymore because my space is really small. So the framing of the 50 is a little bit too tight for me. And I just find I have to work harder to get shots that are more full body and tell like a better story. So for that reason, I mostly just use my 50 when I'm shooting outdoor portraits and outdoor boudoir. Another reason I like the 35 over the 50, and this might be a little controversial, is that although 50 is kind of like talked about as a better portrait lens because it doesn't have as much distortion, our eye sees an 18mm. So when you shoot with a 50, your client looks wider than they actually are. And in boudoir, you don't want that. All right, I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. And if you guys haven't watched videos on the difference of your focal length on your subject, I'm gonna pop the link to just another YouTube video below because this has been talked about in so many other videos. I'm not gonna redo it because there's hundreds, thousands of this video already existing. So I'm gonna put it in the description so you can go look and see the difference the focal length has on your subject and their face and how their body looks. So basically you want a longer focal length for portraits because like say if you're doing like a close-up of the face, if you're with a wider lens, the nose is going to look really pointy and it's going to be closer to the camera than the rest of the face. So basically what that does is it kind of like squishes your features into like the same dimension, which is great, but it kind of like brings you flatter. It makes you look flatter and a little bit wider, which I don't find the most flattering for boudoir. It's not a huge difference. Honestly, your clients probably won't notice it too much, but I do find that the 35 is more flattering overall as long as you're being really careful about your distortion. So overall, the pros of the 50 is you're gonna get a little less distortion with your client if you're doing kind of like angled poses or their arm is closer to the camera than you would with the 35 or a wider lens. But you're cutting off a lot of your frame because it's a tighter frame, so it might be a little bit harder to work with. And if you're in a smaller space, it's probably not going to be the best option for you just because you're going to find like maybe you're cutting off the hands and the feet, and that's like a big no-no if you're trying to do a full body one. So if your space is really small, I wouldn't recommend a 50, but if you have a huge studio and you have lots of space or you're outside, 50 might be safer just so you're not getting so much distortion. Ta-da! Here's the 35. This lives on my camera. This is like my pride and joy. I love it so much. This is my Canon L 1.4 35mm. It just exists on my camera for almost every single one of my boudoir shoots for the reasons I said before. The pro is that it makes more flattering images of my clients and makes them look a little less wide than they would look with the 50, which you don't want to do in boudoir because a lot of the times your clients are going to be really hyper aware of what they look like. So you want to kind of make sure that they look as close to how they see themselves in the mirror. And I think the 35 achieves that more accurately than the 50 does, or anything wider like an 85. This is my like imaginary 85. The con is if you're shooting anything close up, you're gonna get some weird distortion with their body if you're not careful, if you're not aware that it's gonna happen and you don't know how to mitigate it and work around it. So the way to mitigate it is never have like this arm close to the camera. Like you never want their arm to be the closest thing, because the thing closest to the camera is gonna be the biggest and the longest. So you don't want them to have like this giant elbow and then their face is like this little tiny potato beside them. You want to make sure that you're really posing them in a way that they're spread out evenly towards the camera so that you're going to get a really flattering photo. That being said, you can also use this to your advantage if you want their legs to look super long or their butt to look super big. Ayy. So I don't know, I just love the 35. I don't find the distortion to be like much of a problem at all when I'm shooting because I'm aware of it. But if you're not aware of it, and you're still learning boudoir, maybe you should try the 50 just to be safe and just so you're not getting like giant hands and giant elbows. I've been shot before as a model on a 24-70 lens, which here, pretend it's here. I don't own it, but just pretend. I didn't like it because I think it was shot mostly at a 24 focal length, and there's just like super distorted. Like if I'm like even slightly on an angle towards the camera, like my hands look huge and then my feet are like these tiny little beans and it just looks silly, and I have a hard time actually like enjoying those photos as much as I would if it was shot with a different focal length, just because I can see the distortion and it's all I can see. So I wouldn't go any wider than a 35. I know some people that love their 24-70, and if you can make it work for you, hell yeah, you do you. But personally, I just think the distortion's a little bit too much to work with, so 35 all the way. That's it. There you go. Those are my lenses for boudoir. Now you guys can stop asking me. I hope you found this video useful. As always, I love when you guys request videos or what you want to know next. I find it super helpful. So if you want to know anything in particular and you have any requests for what you want me to talk about next, pop it down in the comments below. Yeah, like, subscribe, hit the bell, all that fun stuff. Until next time, thanks for watching. Let's do the thing, let's do the thing. Should you like a weird intro? Okay, that was dorky enough, I think, for everybody. Ooh, my phone's in the picture. Photographer. One more time.